Hey, welcome everyone. This is Skip Wiley, and I get to moderate what I consider one of the most important topics of the day for real estate agents. This is episode number 12 of the 5-Year Real Estate Podcast. Today's topic is a topic totally misunderstood by the population and the real estate community and the mortgage community. It's called understanding how the NAR settlement will impact realtors, and it will have a significant impact on our industry, but not in the way that many people see it based on the lawsuits that have taken place. So before we get started today, I want you to imagine if you can, starting a real estate business that in 5 short years will pay you abundantly for the rest of your life. Now, I know, since I've been in the business a very long time, and all of the speakers on the call today have been in the business close to 30 years or more, that may sound like hype. But if you are willing to open your mind to a different form of creating revenue in real estate, this is the place for you to be. So welcome to the 5-Year Real Estate Podcast. And the next 30 minutes, we're going to give you our feedback, our opinion, our thinking through the process of what's going to happen with the NAR settlement. So here's the 4 things we're going to cover on today's call. We're going to cover the settlement. Is it true that real estate commissions are going away or being reduced dramatically? Is it true that buyer's agents are now dead in the water? I know Zillow's concerned about that, and a lot of companies are, but we're going to cover that topic. Does it mean the real estate prices are coming down? That should be a really major challenge for us to think about, and also to advise sellers. And finally, do you have to be a listing agent to survive? There are many people out there that believe that when all of these changes come about, that you're going to have to be a listing agent, and we're going to discuss that today. So there's a lot to unpack on today's call, and we're going to start today's call with a little feedback on questions, and I'm going to actually ask Patrick to step up here and kind of open the topic up today by asking some questions that all of us are going to address on this call. So Patrick, would you do that?
Sure. Okay. So I think the first question I hear all the time, and I hear it from more lay people, not in the real estate industry, but it's kind of shocking as well that the realtors, well, I shouldn't say shocking. Realtors are all asking this question too. And will brokerage fees be forced to be reduced by the settlement? And I'm going to preface this by saying the component that we're talking about here is the nexus of the entire settlement was that the plaintiff was suggesting that NAR, the National Association of Realtors, was fixing prices, which it quite frankly is the furthest thing from the truth. We've always talked about antitrust being not what the NAR is part of, and that commissions are always negotiable. But the question now is, based on the bifurcation of listing commissions and buyer's broker commissions, will it reduce the commission? So I think we should talk about that a little bit. And I'll start, Skip, to answer your question. Well, you know, what I learned back when I first started in real estate, back when houses were made out of straw, was that compensating real estate brokers who have buyers for certain properties is a great way to get the best price obtainable in the shortest period of time, and typically with the least amount of inconvenience to somebody. And to think that by not offering compensation to brokers is going to make things better is a complete topsy-turvy of the real estate model. So let's talk a little bit about that. What do you think, Skip? Will commissions come down?
They may come down a little, but the trend for the past couple of years has been reduced commissions in light of how fast property was moving. In 2021 and 2022, if you put a property on the market, you had 7 buyers ready to buy it because of low interest rates or cash buyers moving here from other parts of the country. So based on the ease of sale, real estate commissions move from a 3% commission to a 2.5% commission, and in some cases even 2%. So looking at that as part of the future, and with increased advantages of technology, it's likely that they're going to come down a little, but I want to answer specifically the question of the challenge. The challenge is in June, when you go to the MLS as a buyer's agent, you're not going to see a commission reflected in the MLS for the buyer's agent. And there are different ways that the listing agent can offer advantages to the buyer through sales concessions and things of that nature. But as I understand it, and there may be major changes, there's going to be different ways for the buyer's agent to be able to learn what the seller is willing to pay. And this is the most important part. If the seller doesn't pay a commission to the buyer's agent, the amount of activity, the amount of traffic, which is the key to getting the top price, will be diminished dramatically for his property that's on the market. Other properties will sell, his will sit, because the reality is the buyer's agent is going to want to be paid, and nobody's going to get paid in order to show that particular piece of real estate. So that's a long comment, but it's all accurate based on a lot of unknowns.
You know, I sit here on the side and I have to stop myself from laughing, you know, at this whole story. And here's two things just to keep in mind. Out of the listings out there, how many times, and you can use it answer as a percentage, does the listing agent actually sell the house?
Very few.
About 20% of the time.
Yeah, or less.
Yeah, okay? Even less.
So the truth of the matter is, you see, they're fixing a problem that didn't exist. Okay, going after this, number one, what they're trying to do, and you know, the only people that made out really in this settlement were the lawyers that brought this. And after this one, there'll be another one. Okay, and that's probably the most frustrating part of it, is because real estate is a large transaction. For many people, it's the largest purchase that they'll make. And because of that, the large transaction, there's large fees involved. And so they've been attacking title companies. They've been attacking title insurance. They've been attacking the mortgage industry, and they'll continue to attack it. But here's the important thing. And where there's value, right? Price isn't the issue. Where there's no value, and the difference is that for many years, for decades, the real estate industry was populated by part-timers, right? It used to be the domain of stay-at-home housewives also had a real estate license, and they would go sell a house on the side. Today, real estate has become much more sophisticated, much more professional. The days of being a part-time agent are soon to be over. And what you'll see right now, whether it's, you know, real estate commissions have been negotiable. It's always been that. As long as I've been in the business for over 30 years, it's nobody can fix commissions. Not a company, nobody can, right? So again, we're solving a problem that didn't happen. So will it force brokers to reduce their compensation? In the absence of value, right? If all an agent doing is, you know, meeting you at the house to unlock the door, you can hire an hourly, and some companies are doing that, hiring hourly people to go do that. But where the value comes, and like I go back to the whole conversation, that the sale is often made by a buyer's agent listening to the client, determining what they really need, and then carefully walking them through that whole process.
So I agree with you 1,000-fold on that, Eric. And I've got 3 points I'd like to add to this as well. You know, one of them is, first of all, is we want this podcast to be something that provides value so that we can all grow from it. I was talking to a good friend who was at a conference in Tennessee last week, and he said he was on a couple of panels, and all the people did was complain about this settlement. Nobody was coming up with solutions. They were just griping, and that made them feel good at the time. But guys, the change is here. It's for real. And so how do we get ourselves in front of it and take advantage of the opportunity? So that's number one. Number two, I was watching another podcast where somebody said something really smart. And they said, you know, the whole value proposition Eric is talking about, in the absence of value, price is everything. It's our own fault. that we as real estate professionals, especially on the buy side, oftentimes make it seem really simple. We'll take you out, show you a house, put one under contract and close. We don't articulate oftentimes well enough what it is that we do. And I'm telling you guys, if you analyze a real estate transaction that you've been a part of, I just closed one today, as a matter of fact. If it wasn't for me, the deal never would have happened, never would have closed. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So we make it simple for the customer. The guy said this line, and I've memorized it. He goes, sell complexity, deliver simplicity. Let the consumer
Wow.
know exactly what's going to be in it for them and what you're going to do to make it easy for them, why it's not inconvenient for them, because it's important to know. And it's kind of like the whole story of the for sale by owner. If you show them how to sell their house, most of them won't want to do it because it's too complicated once you've given them all the tools. So that's important as well. And then lastly, it's also the frame of reference, right? When the question that we're asking is, will brokers be forced to reduce their commissions? Well, it depends from what perspective we're looking at it. Will percentages possibly decrease for various reasons? Could be, but I'll tell you what, when I started in real estate, and I'm going to throw some numbers out there as examples, we were not fixing prices, but real estate commissions were in the 7+% range. However, I made on average about $2,000 per transaction based on the price point I was in. Well, now I'm making 10 times that amount doing the same job, only because housing prices have gone up. So I'm making way more per deal, and in many cases doing less work because of technology. So the commissions are way up. The percentages might be changed, but the dollars are there. And that's what's important, folks, is the dollars that we keep in our pocket upon closing that deal.
Yeah,
Great points.
very significant. You know, as you were talking and discussing all of that, I was just thinking logically. If a seller wants to sell a property and the property's not moving, the seller will revise, if he's got a good quality listing agent, he'll revise the strategy. And even in the beginning, if he reads all the press, he may say, no commission for the buyer's agent. Let him get it from the buyer. But when his property sits there for 30, 60, 90, 120 days, they're going to rethink what they're doing and take the advice of the listing agent who probably told them that on day one.
That's right. And
offer a buyer's
for every
agent a
month
commission.
that goes by, unless their house is free and clear, they've got hard costs. They've got mortgage payments, taxes, and insurance and upkeep on that property. So the longer it takes, it's just like dealing with REO companies. They don't want to hold these properties. They want to move them now. And the best strategy is key. So pricing, compensation to other folks. And Skip, you also said it. It's not that compensation is going away. And Eric, I think you may have said it. It's just that it can't be advertised on, ironically, the multiple listing service. It can show up everywhere else in the world. It can be on my company website. I can put it in emails to my friends. It just can't be on the multiple listing service.
Yeah, so we pretty much nailed that, I think. And what we said is commissions will be there. They're going to be paid, and we're going to learn about them differently, but there's still going to be a commission built into the transaction for the buyer's agent, because buyers, especially first-time home buyers and real estate investors, still look for that counsel of the consulting factor of that agent to represent them. So good comments. Second thing, or actually the next topic I think we should address is the settlement prohibits sellers from paying a commission to a buyer's agent and relieves the seller of that financial responsibility. Eric, you want to talk about that for a minute or start the conversation on that?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about that is that the properties that have an offer, right, of a buyer's agent compensation, they just can't announce it. But because what they're trying to do is to make it negotiable, right? But I'll tell you a funny story. Yesterday I call up, I have a property that needs the air quality tested. Okay, they think that there's a funny smell to the house. So I got a referral to a company that does mold remediation, and they do the water, all the repairs and everything. I called them up and they said, well, we don't do that because a water restoration business by law can't be the company that does the air testing. But then I said, well, how much typically will that be? It'll be about $700 to $800. So in every product out there, there is a reasonable market valued price. Okay, commissions are no different. Then I said, well, I just need the air test. So all of a sudden, they're not getting paid, right? And they said, but if you have water damage and if then you can claim on insurance and we can get all that taken away for you, so the price won't matter. And I said, well, there's no insurance claim being here. All of a sudden, she couldn't wait to get off the phone from me. Okay. The point being that if there's no commission, if no one's being paid, no one's going to show up for work. Number one. Okay.
Right.
Number two is that whether it's announced in the MLS or not announced, and this is really more to your question, displaying it somewhere doesn't change the value.
Right.
Right.
That's the bottom line. So it doesn't prohibit sellers from paying a commission to a buyer's agent. It doesn't relieve the sellers of the financial burden. And here's the other funny thing. You ever bought a property for sale by owner? Of course, right?
I have, yes.
And when you made an offer to the buyer, you got it, Patrick. You know exactly where I'm going. When you made an offer, since there was no agent, what did you automatically do?
Commission.
I offered less, right?
reduced
Because I
it.
said, listen, you don't have to pay a commission. Give me the benefit. So somebody's paying for it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
always. There's no free lunch in this country, and there's no free lunch. And an interesting point that I want to add, you know, people are so nervous about this, but in every other country that is around the world, Canada, Australia, they've been operating with a philosophy that the buyer pays the buyer agency commission, or like Australia and Canada, they've operated this way for the past 25 years. So we will adjust. We should get excited about one thing. It'll eliminate a lot of people from our industry, and there'll be more commissions available for the people who remain. So next question, and this is one that is a bit complicated. So I really want some good feedback from everybody on this, which I always get, by the way. Is the settlement going to mean that the prices are going to be lower for the seller? Are the sellers going to have to reduce prices because of the settlement? Anybody want to jump off on this topic?
Economics 101, supply
Bingo.
and demand.
Right. 100%. So I was going to say the exact same thing. First of all, supply is listings, right? That's kind of the cornerstone of real estate. And marketing your supply is vital to selling it. You can have a great grocery store. If nobody knows it's there, all the food is going to spoil and go bad. You've got to market it, even though you're a known name. Well, the same is true with real estate, right? So when it's marketed and it's a hot commodity with seller's market, low number of homes for sale, a lot of buyers, it's always going to happen. And people will figure it out. No matter how complicated settlements may make things or change it, the route to Rome is always going to be via some road. And so value is only going to be impacted dramatically by the demand. How we leverage that as real estate professionals and take advantage of the fact that many of our competing homes for sale may be not being smart and trying to save the buyer brokerage commission, which they're entitled to do, and not putting certain expenses out to market their homes. Their particular property may not sell for as much, but in my opinion, I don't see it bringing the value of real estate down because it's based upon so many other factors than compensation. In fact, compensation, to Skip, to your point, as that percentage has been going down, it's really a small fragment of the actual market value. It's a couple percent at best.
I feel strongly that it will have absolutely zero impact on a seller, and it'll make properties. I think it'll actually make properties move a little faster because the seller is now setting the price based on a 3% or 2.5% listing commission, and I guess what I'm really trying to say clearly is that it won't impact the price that a seller will net, simply because, as both of you have mentioned, it's always been about supply and demand. You know, there were times where interest rates were 20% in my life. Sellers couldn't sell it no matter what, even though there was a huge supply. So there are many factors beside this challenge with how buyers agents are going to be paid that will impact the market. And everybody with a brain says when interest rates go down again into the fives, that there will be dramatic increases in sales prices simply because there's not enough inventory on the market. It's growing, but it's not there yet. All right, next question. We kind of covered all of the questions that we wanted to talk about today. Is there any other topic here that?
No, we've got quite a few. I saw another one, Skip. So and again, these questions or observations are what we're hearing from the field. They're not necessarily true. We're dispelling myths, but one of them is this settlement is going to be a win for buyers who will now be able to negotiate the fee that they pay for their representation. So part of the settlement was the agreement for compensation on the MLS showed what the buyer's brokerage was going to make on that listing, and that was it. You couldn't negotiate it typically. I mean, you could lower it if you wanted to, but you couldn't raise it. In this case now, the buyer and the buyer's agents are going to have to go into an agency relationship. That's one of the big changes. And if you haven't gotten your head wrapped around this, folks, you definitely want to do it. Go to your association training, read up on it. That's important to be able to articulate your value, get a buyer to sign an agreement, which we don't even have time to talk about on this podcast, but then also to determine what that compensation is going to be. It is the flip side of the discussion about the seller, and that is, as a buyer, what am I willing to pay? Well, what are you worth as a buyer to a prospective real estate professional? And, behind the scenes, we all as real estate agents know there are some folks that you may not want to work with simply because they can't make a decision. They're not qualified is another great example. They just can't buy, and you don't work with them. Well, if you're not going to get paid, to Eric's point, you may not want to work with that person either. We've got to determine and pick and choose where we want to spend our time based on our professional experience and the income that we want to earn. So I know for a fact, because I'm talking with some folks about this under separate cover, but there are changes to the buyer game happening, and artificial intelligence is coming into play where many buyers, and we talked about this on another podcast, if I'm a sophisticated investor, I may not need all the same services a first-time home buyer might need from a buyer's agent.
Right.
So as an investor, I might be willing to slide what I'm going to pay for services because I only need you to do these things for me. I'll do the rest. For the first-time home buyer, they should not shoot themselves in the foot by trying to skimp and save in areas that could affect them very severely financially. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. Is anybody going to be impacted? Are there any segment of the market that are going to be the most impacted by these changes that are definitely going to happen around June of this year?
I'll jump in on that one. And here's, again, the people that need it the most are going to be impacted the most. The people who have the least access to knowledge, to financing, to information, they're the ones that are actually going to be hurt the most, right? And as a result, once again, the market will determine, the value of what that is, and you're going to see, I think what ruffles a lot of feathers today is change. The fact that there's change. People don't like change. Will it change the industry? I really don't think so. Because ultimately, what are the three most important words when it comes to real estate values? Location, location, location. Andrew, what's the three most important words after that? Financing, financing, financing. And so I was just thinking, you really got to remember 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. There's 4 issues: the financing, the location, the legal work, right? To your point, Patrick, the complexity, right? And then there's the quarterback. I remember there used to be a painting in our real estate office, and it was a bunch of people rowing, like 7 people rowing. And there was the title company, the inspection, the appraiser, the financing, and all the different people that need to row at the same time for the transaction to close. So there had to be a captain at the front of the boat that was, keeping the rhythm. So everybody rows at the same time. Otherwise, the canoe will keep going in circles, right? And not go anywhere. And that is the buyer's agent. Most often it's the buyer's agent that finds the first-time home buyer and convinces or educates them why being a homeowner is much better, 100 times better than being a renter. And in many cases, they're on a mission, right? They perform a very valuable, and to say, well, you know what? We don't think that they should have compensation. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
You know, I've got to add something too, is, you know, oftentimes we as real estate professionals have to scratch our head saying, well, what am I going to talk to my future customers about next, right? They already know what I do and how I do it. And so one of the things that we do is we conduct first-time homebuyer seminars throughout the country, but often pinpointed by area. And by the way, if you want to participate in any of these, reach out to us directly. We do them a couple times a month. You can have a link of your own so that you can have your own customers, but we'll do it for you. Great program. But what better topic to bring to the table right now, whether it's through your affinity clients and doing seminars and lunch and learns for employer groups, through your investor groups that you're working with, or first-time home buyers, to talk about these things. And as we discuss them, more questions come out than there are answers for presently. So it's a great ongoing way to stay in touch with your buying public. And by the way, if people are interested in this topic, guess what they're also probably thinking about doing? Buying a house. So,
Hey,
or
Patrick,
selling one.
you're so right on. Last week alone, I'm kind of a gregarious guy. I like to talk to people. I'm socially, I'm out quite a bit. And I had 3 people last week tell me that the 6% commission was gone for good. In essence, they said, how are you going to survive? And I said, well, very well, because that's not true. And hopefully, as we get near the end of our presentation today, I want all the real estate agents in the world, in the US in particular, to chill. Just chill, because there will, you know, I've been in the business over 35 or longer, who knows how long. But here's the reality. There have been multiple changes over that 35 years, that there was a lot of stress from real estate agents about would the industry survive. I heard 20 years ago that real estate agents weren't going to be needed ever because of technology. And you know, there's 4 of us here today, and we're still here. And so I think one of the most important things that any real estate agent has to do is just chill, because we'll still be here. People are not going to let a robot sell them their next home. They're looking for a relationship with someone that they have trust and confidence in, to guide them on their biggest financial decision in life, and that's buying that very first home.
So
Yeah,
one
even
more
buying their next home, because it's been 20 years since they bought the last.
That's true, and they have no clue.
So Patrick said something, you know, and I love that one. And you know, sell complexity or find complexity and deliver simplicity. Big time. When you go to the doctor's office, okay, another industry that has been under fire and radical changes. Remember travel agents, right? Travel agents. They said we're never going to need travel agents again. And yet I know a couple of very successful, well-off travel agents, because they deliver very special value. If all you're doing is buying a ticket, right? You can go on the internet and there's no specialization needed. But you want to tour Europe the right way, you're gonna find a consultant. The fastest growing, and I'm gonna leave you guys with a question, okay? The fastest growing industry right now, does anybody want to take a guess what it is? Coaching.
Yeah,
Coaching, yeah.
Coaching.
Education.
All in every, you know, there's life coaches, there's, you know, every type of coaching. More and more people are developing a specialty, maybe because they did 20 years in a career and now they're coaching all the new people and so forth. Imagine if the buyer's agent is no longer the buyer's agent, but he is now the buyer's real estate coach.
Yeah,
think about that for a second, right? And that's why, like, we have a program, right? We coach agents as well, right? And we have shown them how to compact to not worry about things like this, right? Because you've got like the board of directors sitting here at the on this podcast that because of all of the years of experience and the ability to have a vision and see through all of the noise where the dust really will settle.
Yeah.
And so you always want to have the top athletes in the world have not a coach, but they have multiple coaches, right? A strength and fitness, a nutritional coach, a speed in the gym, whatever. And today, everyone on this panel here, we have coaches. We have our own coaches. And there's always a coach that has a coach. Even psychologists have psychologists, right? So the big question here, is the real estate market going to change or go away? Is the role of an agent going to go away? No, it's changing. It's changing. And if you're a good coach, and a good coach, does a coach give advice before he assesses the client?
Never.
Right? So somebody to go unlock a door, that's a minimum wage person. Somebody that finds out, Patrick, what do you need? What's important to you in a house? Tell me more about your life so that I can custom tailor the home for you. That's not a minimum wage job, and it never will be.
Nope.
And you know, just to add one little point to what you just said, finding off-market properties. You know, one of the great things that I've done in my long career is somebody has said, I want that house in that neighborhood, and it wasn't for sale in that neighborhood, but digging deep and finding what that person wants, that's what a good coach does.
Very true.
Give them exactly what they need and want by going out and finding it. So there are a lot of things that real estate agents do, and just building a case for all of the things that we are going to do for you. The stronger the case, the more people are willing to pay for your services. So guys, we're at the end of our presentation today. I would like to thank each of you for your comments on what the future of real estate is going to look like. Understanding how the NAR settlement will impact us. I think we've done an excellent job of providing what I would describe as a pathway for the next age of real estate. So I want to thank the people that are going to look at this podcast in the future for joining us on our 5-year real estate podcast. We hope we provide a value. We believe that you will benefit from any of our podcasts. And by the way, you can find all 11 of our podcasts, 12 after today. Those podcasts are located on in YouTube, 5-year real estate career. And we want to thank you for being on the call today, Patrick, Eric. You guys do a bang-up job of every time we're together. And remember, don't just listen, use this information to build your own 5-year real estate career. Final comment, this Tuesday evening, we are holding another one of our first-time homebuyer presentations. And if you'd like to know more how you can develop your own first-time homebuyer presentation in your local market, get all of the benefit, and pay very little money to develop high-quality leads for you and your team, give us a shout. You can reach any one of us. Thank you for being on our call today. Have a great weekend, and don't worry so much about the future of real estate. It will be here long after I leave this planet. Have a great day, everyone.